Well, this certainly is not the Connor McDavid Edmonton Oilers update that I thought we'd be giving in this video. Yesterday, we had spoken about the suspensions handed out to Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers following their cross-checks to the heads of Connor Garland and Evan Bouchard. 3 games each, Myers and McDavid both in a similar boat here. And it was a really big deal on Oilers Twitter. Oilers social media was popping off, Oilers radio was going on rants about it, and the funny part is a lot of Canucks fans over here, just one province west of Alberta, were taking this as an opportunity to troll the hell out of the Oilers fans and the Oilers media. It was a pretty feisty past 24 to 48 hours or so when talking about Myers and McDavid. But in this video, what I wanted to do was dive into some of the extra fallout, some of the updates we had seen out of guys like McDavid, out of Leon Draisaitl as well, and how they're all responding to this situation, because quite frankly, it seems like they're really upset. They might be pretty pissed off here if we go out there and take a look at these tweets. So, as always, the show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. You can go out there and click the first link in the description to get some free months on your VPN and save yourself some money, all while helping the channel out. So please consider doing that if you are in need of a VPN. Without further ado, let's get into our first tweet of the day. Now, Chris Johnston tweeted this out earlier this morning. While there was disappointment with the 3-game suspension that Connor McDavid was levied by the NHL player safety, the Oilers captain has decided not to appeal that decision, per sources. So even though he is frustrated, he's not going to go out there and challenge it. He's going to take it like he should and just settle down and miss out on the next 3 games worth of Oilers hockey, which is great for me because, as I had said yesterday, I am playing a bunch of dudes in fantasy this week who happen to have McDavid and his 50-plus projected points for the next 3 games. So take him out of the lineup, please. Make it so that I don't have to face him. But regardless, even though McDavid is not going to appeal the suspension, the disappointment that Chris Johnson lays out apparently is a little bit deeper than we might just assume from the word disappointment. Take a look at this tweet made by the Too Much Hockey podcast from yesterday. If you remember, Too Much Hockey Pod, they're a primarily focused Edmonton-based show, and they have broken news in the past. It's very interesting how sometimes a local podcast can be a source for some legitimate scoops. We are hearing that Connor McDavid and his camp are strongly considering scaling back their NHL tour events, such as media interviews, to push things for the league. This was communicated before to the NHL because of the lack of protection that superstar players get in this league. This is a story to follow over the next few weeks. And so apparently, based off of this piece of information, Connor McDavid was so upset with the suspension handed out to him that him and his party are considering to not do as many NHL media tour events. Hey, you guys aren't taking your measures to protect the star players in the league? You guys are taking out star players in the league? Well, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home. That's essentially what this tweet is describing. And you have 2 main perspectives that are battling against this. Firstly, you have Gino that replied this: these so-called superstars, especially McDavid, okay, he is a superstar, calm down there, they need to stop crying. The rules are for everyone. It doesn't mean they are above the law. And secondly, we had the opposing perspective. This is what Leon Draisaitl said earlier this morning during the pregame skate. I certainly think that 3 games is a little too much for either side, both Myers and McDavid. But I guess we don't overly care about having our best players in the league in the game, Draisaitl said on McDavid's suspension, essentially saying that it's a problem that the NHL is suspending McDavid for that long because it keeps a star player out of the game. On one hand, hey, do you want to go out there and give guys equal treatment? Or on the other, do you give McDavid special treatment because he is a special player in the league? Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this idea? Of course, though, we as fans don't really have much control about this all. We just have to sit here and watch what happens because we're all spectators of this glorious sport, after all. But it does feel kind of interesting that the best player in the league, in Connor McDavid, is so upset about this entire thing that he's willing to scale back his own media interviews and his own press tour. How upset could you get on this league? Why are you so pissy, Leon? Okay, I'm just gonna throw it back to that for a little bit. But we did actually have ourselves a response from Ryan Rastrog on TSN earlier this morning. So the Too Much Hockey Pod tweet, which talked about how McDavid is apparently going to scale back his media availability, was posted yesterday. This is what Rashog said today. There are some suggestions out there that McDavid could or should scale back his involvement in league activities and media as protest over the suspension. My understanding is that's not his headspace at all. He'll continue to conduct himself the same as he always has. However, there was another response that I wanted to dive into here too. Alan says there was nothing suggesting that he was scaling back due to the suspension. The original report was that McDavid would scale back his media due to the horrendous and seemingly league-mandated officiating standards, which damaged the NHL in terms of wider appeal. So, at this point, it seems like we are getting into semantics, but at the same time, I do think it is interesting to just note where everybody's headspace lies with this matter, because it's very apparent that Connor McDavid is probably really upset about how this entire thing went down. Leon Draisaitl is expressing his own frustration, too. I mean, you don't think McDavid and Draisaitl talk behind the scenes as buddies, as teammates, as top point scorers on the same hockey team? Like, yeah, that was such a BS suspension that I got. Imagine suspending the guy who has his new burger at McDonald's. Why would they do this? And Leon's like, yeah, and then I'm going to speak about it in the media, because Leon has always had the feistier of the two comments on the microphones, so you could always rely on Leon Draisaitl to give you a quote when you need it. But at the end of the day, this boils down to whether or not you feel the NHL is in the wrong here for treating McDavid the same way they had treated Tyler Myers. If it were up to me, I honestly do think that McDavid should have gotten suspended for the same amount of time, maybe even a bit more, if I'm going to be totally honest. The way the hits were conducted, okay, Evan Bouchard was walking into Tyler Myers, Connor Garland was just kind of there, he was hugging on to McDavid, McDavid got pissed off and he whacked him. If you would have said that McDavid got one extra game over Myers, I would have been okay with that, to be honest. But ultimately, seeing them get suspended for the same amount of time, I think, is a pretty good standard set by the NHL. Just because you are a star player, we're not going to give you stars treatment. I do like the more equality-based angle. However, I won't discredit the idea that Connor McDavid does draw a lot more penalties than are actually called. I do think the NHL has a difficult time protecting its star players in the ways that it should, because if Connor McDavid is getting whacked and hacked and slashed, hey, he should draw a few penalties, more than he actually gets in this National Hockey League sport. So obviously, both sides do have meaningful arguments here that, okay, McDavid doesn't really get the protection that he needs from the NHL, but at the same time, he went out there and did an oopsie on Connor Garland. He should get suspended for that, and he has. He's not going to appeal it, but it's very apparent that he's already pretty frustrated, whether or not that does mean that he scales back his media availability in his interviews or not. Leon Draisaitl spoke about this too. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about everything about Connor McDavid and this suspension, how these star Oilers players seem to be very upset with the matter, and what your thought process about it all. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.